we're learning how to contract the muscles, but also how to release this tension on demand. I'm pressing. I am relaxing consciously under pressure. Literally. I am relaxing under pressure, and then I feel like, wow, the tension is gone. Even if I held a little bit of tension first and I tensed up more, when I start releasing this tension, I'll go further down on the scale. I will become more relaxed than I initially was. That means I've just discovered the secret to becoming more relaxed at will. If you know how to achieve that on demand, it means you have the secret to letting go of undue tensions, therefore removing energy blockages, which are responsible for most human illness. I've just revealed to you the secret to health and vitality. Another thing that you may also discover is that you become a lot stronger because the relaxed muscles are more capable of contracting when necessary. That means you actually gain more strength by relaxing, and then when you need to, you can contract again and relax again. And that's how we exercise. That's how we get stronger. We don't become stronger by holding tension. We get stronger by contracting and relaxing. Now, one of the things that we develop is the ability to relax under pressure when somebody else is pressuring us. Hey, now, would you do me a favor and push me? But now, push me from behind. So instead of looking and being able to see where she's pushing me, now I have to feel it. And I'm going to actually contract and relax. And again, contract and relax. You feel how I'm tensing up under your hand? Mm-hmm. And then what happens?
Yeah.
I disappear from under your fingers. It's like water flowing, seeping between the fingers. Mm-hmm. Well, be like water, my friend. This is how we develop the ability to be invincible, because nobody can defeat water. Imagine a samurai with a sword going against the waterfall and trying to chop it into pieces. It's not going to go very well. It may actually eventually lose its sword and maybe even its life, and the waterfall just keeps flowing. What we're learning is how to not be like that samurai, not go against the water, become like water ourselves. How does it feel to be more like water? Well, you are water. 90% or so of human organism is actually fluid, water. The rest are muscles and bones and some fat, but most of the human organism is actually water. How often do we think of ourselves this way? We literally create a sense of mistaken identity. We think that we are made of solid matter, and we move like solid matter, and we think like solid matter, and we act like solid matter, when in fact we are actually mostly water. This is a fantastic transformation of our own identity. We have to dig real deep to discover how to uncover our potential. Well, this is one of the potentials that we can uncover, being fluid, being in the flow on demand. What else can we do to experience more flow on demand? Well, there is also the element of air, and that's something that we can play with. I want to introduce first not a breathing exercise, but a different way of looking at breathing. Instead of trying to do breathing exercises, doing breathing according to protocol or how we think the correct formula for breathing is, what we want to do is actually learn how to pay attention to breathing and use it much more as a gauge. That's right, a gauge of flow, how relaxed we are, how we are responsive instead of reactive. Let's say you go to a party and you run into somebody who you can't stand. The person is just making you cringe. How will that affect your breathing? Cringing obviously doesn't make you breathe easier, it makes it harder to breathe, right? When you cringe, it's an expression of dissonance or not very high degree of resonance. It's not black and white, it's not like either you're good or bad. It's more like different degrees of resonance, and so we may cringe to different degrees. But what we're looking for is an awareness of how we're breathing, because we may not even notice how we're tensing up, especially if we're used to tensing up in a particular set of circumstances. But what if we actually pay attention to how we breathe and notice? When I focus my attention on this person, my breathing becomes stifled and shallow and stressed. When I focus on that person, or on that subject, or on that course of action, my breathing changes, becoming easier, deeper, and smoother. I may even have a sigh of relief, which is a clear sign that I resonate with that, whichever I'm focusing my attention on. If I have a sigh of relief when I talk to a person, it's not because I'm bored and I'm yawning, it's because I actually resonate with a person. Well, what's the alternative? The opposite of sigh of relief. It's stiffness and cringing. So if we understand the simple dynamic of how breathing reveals our mental state, we can read our own mind. We don't need the mind reader to read our mind. We need to be able to read our own mind, in this case, unconscious mind. As we read our own unconscious mind, using this interface, using this gauge that breathing provides us, something amazing happens. We can actually sense resonance or different degrees of resonance where previously we were just relying on labels such as good, bad, right, wrong, instead of labels which are never true. And I mean, they may be true for one person, but they may not be true for others. You know, how often does it work out this way that what's true for one person is universally true for everyone? Not very often, right? Usually there are different strokes for different folks. And what's a trash for one person and maybe a treasure for another. In other words, what one person resonates with doesn't necessarily mean that others resonate with it as well. Instead, different people may have different degrees of resonance. If they all had the same resonance and everyone agreed on what's good and what's bad, we would be living in world peace, because there would be perfect cohesion. Everyone is on the same page. But we know that's not the case. We will live in a world full of conflicts and different opinions. Sometimes they're polar opposites. One person says this is true, and the other person says, no, that's false. Or this is good, and other people say, no, that's bad, and vice versa. In other words, labels don't have social agreement behind them. Well, if they have no social agreement, why are we using them? I am proposing to replace labels with something much more intelligent. A sense of energy resonance. When you resonate with something, it's neither good nor bad, because you don't want to put the label, since we already figured the labels don't work. They also don't work for another really important reason, and that is they have no perpetuity. What do I mean by that? Well, what was good yesterday may turn out to be not so good today or tomorrow. And on the contrary, what seemed to be not so good yesterday actually may turn out to be not so bad tomorrow. Why is that? Well, because things change. It's the most constant thing in the universe, change. Labels, which are rigid and they are expected to have some kind of perpetuity to them, actually don't work. If we understand how the labels don't work and why, then we just simply stop using them and replace them with energy resonance. Well, how do we get to sense the energy resonance and develop that degree of discernment? That's right, discernment based on energy resonance is what we are going to replace the judgment. Most people cannot think, that's why they judge. Well, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they can think, but they cannot discern. If they discern, they stop judging, they stop labeling things. They stop operating on the basis of labels such as good and bad, black and white perception of reality, and develop much more nuanced, much more colorful perception of reality. That's what gives us the experience of being more fully alive. Who wouldn't want that, right? Now, what we learn is how to sense that energy resonance, and for that purpose, we use our breath. And one of the things that I invite you to play with is exactly that. Just think about something that you really love. For example, if you like listening to music, well, maybe there is some piece of music or several pieces of music in your collection that you really love listening to, and you can listen to them over and over again. How does your breathing reflect that degree of resonance? Do you feel a sigh of relief when you think of it? Or when you think of someone you really love? Or think of a particular in your value system that you hold dear to your heart? Yawn is an exaggerated sigh of relief. I love yawning because it's a clear sign of resonance. Why? It's not because we're tired. I mean, we're relaxing. Most people are not used to being relaxed. So when they start yawning, they think, oh, it must be time to sleep. They're not used to being relaxed and being awake at the same time. But yawning actually goes even beyond this discernment that we are looking for. The reason why we're looking for discernment is because it's the key to wisdom. The key to wisdom is the ability to discern rather than to judge. When we develop this ability to discern based on energy resonance, we are no longer judgmental, we are no longer labeling things, we are no longer casting our projections, this is good and this is bad. We're simply assessing things authentically. Authenticity is also a result of this level of awareness that we develop as to how much we resonate with different things differently from other people. Nobody is going to tell us, don't resonate with this, resonate with that instead. So we can allow ourselves to be authentic because we develop our discernment based on energy resonance, and we don't have to prove it to other people. We simply feel it ourselves. And if something doesn't resonate with us, well, we don't have to convince everyone else that this is bad. We simply realize, okay, I don't resonate with this. If I focus my attention on it, the longer I do that, the more my breathing becomes stifled and I feel like I'm not in the flow. I don't want to say that you should never pay attention to things that you don't resonate with, because sometimes they contain some lessons. That's right. Instead of perceiving them as problems or something that you want to get rid of or just disregard and pretend that they're not happening, we actually recognize, yes, there are some lessons contained within those things that we don't resonate with. So we don't want to just be in denial of them. We also remember that the more time we spend focusing our attention on those things we don't resonate with, the more we struggle and suffer. This gives you the golden key to unlock nirvana, the state of freedom from suffering. You can be in nirvana, my friend, when you focus your attention on things that you resonate with the most, because you feel the flow and you can enjoy being in the flow. But if you're constantly in the flow, you're not learning. You're not developing greater knowledge and wisdom. So it's okay to sometimes pay attention to things you don't resonate with, because you're going to learn a great deal. You're only going to learn if you get into a learning state of consciousness. And that means that you need to remind yourself, when I'm focusing on something I don't resonate with, that's a learning opportunity, not a problem. Then instead of a fight or flight state, you get into a learning state. Now, if you're not in a fight or flight, stressful state, that means you're not experiencing stress. So we're not talking about stress management. We're talking about stress mastery, where you realize that you are a cause of your own stress or freedom from it. And that gives you the sense of self-mastery, which is the holy grail of most schools of personal development and spirituality.